Hello and welcome to the Rose System. My name is Sarah and today we are looking at the history of dissociative identity disorder. We are not professional historians and the information we have found about this has come from some scholarly articles we found through our university, as well as some information that can be found through normal Google. A trigger warning for this video, we will be using outdated and offensive language that was accurate to the time to show the evolution of language over history. Alongside this, there will be mentions of female reproductive organs and religious trauma. Let's get into it. Our journey begins in 1900 BC, where ancient Egypt documentation called the Kahun Papyrus spoke about a mental disorder that affected women. Treatment included putting different substances on different areas of the body to move the position of the uterus, which was believed to cure this affliction. In the 5th century BC, Hippocrates coined the term hysteria to describe this affliction. He too believed that it could be cured by moving the uterus. His documentation of hysteria has differentiated it from epilepsy. During the Middle Ages, hysteria was believed to be the result of the devil and demons. Mental health was attributed to supernatural causes. The belief continued that only women experienced hysteria. So far, what we have covered is not strictly related to dissociative identity disorder, but shows the history of some of the terms that are used for dissociative identity disorder. Now we are looking at DID specifically. 1584 is the first recording of what we now call DID. Jean Ferry had many notes taken about her exorcism. She had multiple personalities with their own names, ages, and identities. At the time, it was believed that she was possessed. Recorded is a history of trauma experienced and identity fragmentation. There is a 109-page document detailing everything that was thought about and discovered. More recent investigations into possession cases from this time are now believed to be cases of DID. One of Harry's alters was named Mary Magdalene, and she helped with the treatment. In 1623, there is another recording of a possession, this time a woman named Sister Benedetta. She had 3 angelic boys who would beat her. When they took control of the body, Benedetta would experience amnesia. There was also record of mannerism and voice changes. These beings would also engage in sexual acts that Benedetta was unaware of. Benedetta was also believed to come from a traumatic background, and her parents were also believed to be possessed. She was sent to a convent at the age of 9 and was in and out of treatment since. 1811 is believed to be the first time DID was recorded in America. This time, a woman named Mary Reynolds woke up with a new personality. Her family noted that there were 2 personalities that they engaged with over the course of 18 years. Whilst it's not explicitly recorded, it is believed that Mary went through religious persecution as a young child. It was noted that the illness was a way for her to live with the repressed memories of the trauma. In 1860, Azam, a psychiatrist, wrote a paper about a woman he was treating who would go into a hypnotic trance. It later transpired that this woman was Philida X. 5 years later, Freud started his psychology investigation. His work has played a major part on modern psychology. Some of his theories are still being used, whereas others are no longer seen as valid. 1875 is the first recording of the term double personality. This was through Azam's interactions with Philida X. Notes taken from their sessions indicated that Philida had 3 to 5 identity states. but official documentation only records 2 to fit within the theory of double personality. Recorded is a trance-like state, followed by a few hours of another identity, another trance-like state, and reverting back to the original. 1882 to 1883 was the first time someone was diagnosed with multiple personality disorder. This time, a man named Louis Auguste Vevey. Documented was extensive childhood trauma, abuse, and neglect. Also documented was extensive amnesia. Initially documented were 2 identity states to try and fit the theory of double personality. By 1888, this was expanded to 10 known identity states. This was one of the first times a man was believed to have female hysteria. In 1897, Freud introduced the idea that males can experience hysteria too. Up until this point, it was believed that only females could experience what was called hysteria. The concept of multiple identities fell under this category. In 1910, schizophrenia as a term was coined and introduced to the medical world. In 1915, the concept of shell shock was introduced due to World War I, where soldiers were experiencing mutism, loss of sight and hearing, convulsions and trembling, anesthesia, sleeplessness, and nightmares. These are all symptoms of female hysteria and were seen in many women and children in abusive homes, thus beginning the discovery of PTSD. In 1918, the predecessor to the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, or the DSM, was published, where multiple personality disorder was classified under hysterical psychoneurosis. This predecessor was called the Statistical Manual for the Use of Institutions of the Insane. In 1924, French psychiatrist Janet coined the term dissociation. However, this was ignored in the psychiatric field at the time. In 1927, schizophrenia became more well known, and there was a dramatic rise in patients being diagnosed with this. At the same time, the diagnosis of multiple personality disorder reduced. A part of the reason this happened is because multiple personalities was a symptom listed for schizophrenia. In 1930, Giovanni Enrico Morselli publishes his report about his patient, Elena. She was diagnosed with schizophrenia by other medical professionals, but Morselli did not believe that schizophrenia was an accurate diagnosis due to the fact that Elena had been through a majorly traumatic experience. In 1932 to 1949, Ferenczi published Confusion of Tongues, in which he links dissociation and the splitting of the personality to childhood abuse and trauma. At the time, this paper was ignored. In 1954, American psychiatrists Thigpen and Cleckley released a document that became the basis of the movie 3 Faces of Eve. In 1968, the DSM-2 was released, and what are now called dissociative disorders were placed under the classification of hysterical neurosis. In 1973, Gruber published Sybil. This publication popularized multiple personality disorder. It was later that this document and the person it was based upon was fraudulent. The real Sybil did not have multiple personality disorder. She was led to believe that this was an accurate diagnosis. The doctor-patient relationship that surrounds this publication was also very unethical. In 1980, the DSM-3 was released. Hysteria and neurosis were no longer acceptable terms, and dissociative disorders were given their own category. PTSD was also introduced as a diagnosis in this edition of the DSM. In 1992, the theory of repressed trauma gained traction, particularly in relation to children who had been abused. The theory suggests that children need to forget their adverse experiences to survive the trauma. In 1994, the DSM-4 was released. In this edition, multiple personality disorder was renamed to dissociative identity disorder. In 2012, Joel Harris wrote a controversial document that claimed that DID was a fad and had no link to trauma. His work has repeatedly been disproven by countless studies, and a lot of his evidence was not peer-reviewed. In 2013, the DSM-5, which is the current DSM, was released. Dissociative disorders are placed directly after the trauma and stress-related disorders to indicate the link between the two. In 2019, DID became more well known in general society due to the rise of information made accessible through websites like YouTube. This was followed in 2020, where continuing research indicates that DID is a severe form of PTSD. The current statistics indicate that roughly 1.5% of the population has DID. And finally, in March of 2022, the DSM-5-TR was released. Thus concludes the history of dissociative identity disorder. We have come a long way from DID being considered female hysteria and possession. Unfortunately, some people cling to the very outdated information on DID. We have provided all the resources we used to make this video in the description below. If you have found this video interesting and want to learn about our own experience with DID, please subscribe so you can stay up to date with our videos. Please know you are loved by the incredible God of the universe, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye!